trying harder to smile when all you want to do is frown and cry. I know times is hard, but you still got to clean up your backyard. You got more strength than you know. Sometimes it gets lost in the overflow. Stop walking all around with your head hung down. Oh yeah. Stop walking around with your head all hung down and just stand up.
Hi, welcome to the Ketriana Yvonne show. I'm Ketriana Yvonne, and today's guest is David Michael. We're here at the garden, and he's going to share some of his input and feelings regarding what's going on in the community. And welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great to have you. We're here at the Union Street Garden and Community Development, just off Eastern Parkway and on Union Street and here in Crown Heights. So it has been a challenging year because of COVID. So normally, we've got multiple open sessions per week where community members can just come in and hang out, right, and learn and get a feel for the garden and walk around. And we've had to close off the garden to the larger community because of COVID. But even more so, it's not clear that we could have it open because we have a couple of massive trees that are a safety issue, and we're sort of worried about them falling on guests. So normally we have a senior event every year where we invite the community seniors to come in, and we have a little bit of a party for them, and we have a children's day as well with a lot of games and activities for the children. And so we've had to cancel those two events for the past 2 years now. So, but yeah, it's a great hardships aside, it is a great place, and it's the reason I still live in the neighborhood is because of this garden.
Okay. So how did you get involved? Was it because you grew up in the neighborhood? And
no, we moved here, I don't know, I think I've been in Crown Heights maybe 6-7 years. I moved into a building across the street, and I had some roommates, and I got my fiance, or my wife, we got married, she moved in with me, and she was really into gardening. And she comes from Sweden and has sort of grown up gardening, and she saw this and wanted to be a member, and we got to know some of the people in our building, and they saw that we were trying to grow beans in our apartment, and there was no light, and she said, well, come on out here, and you can start volunteering, and eventually a year later you can get a box. And it was just a great way to get to know people who had been here. I think part of the issue is like, well, I'm not from Brooklyn originally. And so to get to know people and to try and invest in the community had been difficult apart from, I go to a Catholic parish, and so that was one way, but to get to know people in my building or on the block, or this has just been a wonderful way to get to know people who are outside of my sort of age demographic. And you get to garden.
Okay. Do you know by any chance Valerie Nero? She's the block president, a little for Park Place, Virginia Place, and Hampton Place.
I do not.
And well, for COVID, I spent a lot of time, I guess, in Crown Heights. Like, we just started kind of meeting in front of her house and with the community people, and just she's a gardener, and it's another person over here on Easter Parkway that just moved from Roosevelt Island, and so she came and the whole group from that street to give ideas on what she should do. So gardening is a good way to connect for community, because I live downtown, and I feel like I live in Crown Heights, even though I did live in Crown Heights, like early in the 80s. But it's definitely a place where people kind of, I think, it's a model for people coming together and supporting the community
Yeah.
and knowing each other and getting involved.
I mean, there's nothing more natural in some sense than growing food and working with the earth. And it's also been, like, Crown Heights as a neighborhood is changing so rapidly. We don't live across the street anymore because we couldn't afford to get our own place.
Right.
So then we moved a little bit farther away, and now we're a little bit farther out in Crown Heights again because someone sold the brownstone really and pushed us out. So to have a garden like this is so important, as just to anchor the community and to be a space that isn't a permanent space. That's that's open for the community, where people can get to know each other, and the garden's not going there. Lots of people are coming in at Crown Heights now, but the garden,
Okay. I'm looking at the squirrel over there, like yeah, I'm coming.
yeah, that
All right, so tell us about how it's organized. Like, is it people get separate?
Yeah, so people, there's kind of a wait list, and you volunteer and put in a number of hours, and then the next year you can get a box, and kind of depends on box availability, but people work. They have a box, and you pay a little bit of a fee. It's not much, and if you can't afford that, then we figure that out. There are ways around that. And then we have a couple boxes just for the community that are, with herbs, or we've got grow strawberries. The kids can come and pick. And then various people take on various other tasks. So I run the composting, which we've had to stop because of the massive trees over there. Branch fell on it, so we've been waiting to get that removed. A couple years from the city, but so we all take on various tasks, and people have their little boxes, but then we come together and we make sure we're trying to do weed or lay down mulch, or there's some work days that we have. So it's not just kind of the individualistic,
Right.
but it's also great because people can show off, what they like to grow, what they like to do,
Right, and eat healthy.
and eat healthy.
Which is the most important part of it. So, okay. So, is it anything else that you would like? Oh, okay. Well, I guess what we would like to have the trees removed from and get more support from our city officials and having this task taken care of.
Yeah, I think it's we have sort of made multiple petitions, and green thumb and forestry and all the borough officials and the city officials to try to get these dead trees removed. We've got two dead trees over there. The branch is falling. Now we've got another one over here, and it's a safety hazard. I have a 5-week-old daughter, and I would love to be able to bring her to the garden, but that's a scary thing because you've got these big trees that can fall. We'd love to be, open and composting, particularly now that the city has stopped the collection of compost because of funding, and that wasn't even a thing in Crown Heights before. So this was, a place where you could do that, but it's not safe anymore. So I think that's important.
Okay, so what do you think would be the future of this green space in the future, or what would you like to envision it happen? What would you like to have happen?
I think my hope for this space would be that it could continue on as a place for relationships to be built, for for the community to be strengthened. I would love it if generations continue to mingle here, and a place where people of all ages, races, backgrounds can feel comfortable and can get to know each other and to be, preserved. So my hope is that we can just keep it going as this kind of place of grace within this rapidly changing. Right across the street, they're building a brand new condo building, and a lot of people with money have moved in, and I think this is a place where people can bond and be themselves and not feel the pressures of money or anything like that.
But to be surrounded by the earth and the life that's growing, it does something to the spirit, and I guess the people that'll be moving in, it's a way to bring people together, definitely, and have that connection where usually people don't really have. If you don't have a garden, you have people that move into a building and you have this separation of these people, and there's nothing really to bring you together. So this is a great space, even though it's surrounded by buildings, but I guess I would just envision it being a big part of bringing the next generation together, and maybe get more funding and do greater things.
There's a lot of strong women who built this garden and invested a lot of time into it when the neighborhood was at times a rougher place. There's still violence in the neighborhood,
right.
But this, I think, has been there's a lot of heart and soul that has gone into this, and a lot of joy that has come out of it, and a lot of community building. And I think I'd love to see it just be a place where people can feel connected to the community. People can, maybe you move in from somewhere else, and that's fine. You want to help out with the community, you want to get involved. I hope that this would be a place for that, and that would continue to be that.
Like it was for you.
100%. We could have moved somewhere else that was, the neighborhood's got a lot more expensive, and it's been kind of a stretch to stay. But for my wife and I, it has been a great joy to be here, and we've made a lot of great friends. And I can't imagine living somewhere else.
Thank you. All right. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you and allowing me to sit in this space and feel just peaceful. So I'll put the vision out there, and people out there, our city officials, if you're watching, let us know what you can do to help. And you can be reached at, you want to give us your email or how they can contact you?
And we can be reached at unionstreetgardencommunity@gmail.com. That's unionstreetgardencommunity@gmail.com.
Thank you, Mr. David. It's been a pleasure allowing us to be here today to talk to some of the other people that's part of the 100 committee. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And make sure you get some figs from the fig tree on your way out there.
Okay, great.
The right kinds. Thank you.
Hi, and so the next guest we have with us is Lourdes, and she has a lot to say, and she's going to share her thoughts with us. And she's a member of the 100 member of the Botanic Garden. And so welcome to the show, and tell us what you want to share about your involvement and what you would like to see happen.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me. It's bringing me great pleasure to share with you the love that I have for the earth, the plants, and the things that help sustain our life, and more than how we eat. So I've loved the Botanic Gardens since I was a small child. I came here from Cuba as a political asylum refugee. I lived in a land where there was much greenery. The only place I had refuge in when I was a little girl was the Botanic Gardens. I was gone for 30 years. I was on an Indian reservation in South Dakota as a teacher, as a community member. The plants are the real doctors. The plants are the true medicine. So I came back to New York 3 years ago, trying to find a place for my heart and my spirit, and I once again went to the Botanic Garden. And I was very fortunate by doing that. I engaged in a relationship with a woman who shared the love of the Botanic Garden and the plight of keeping it for everyone to enjoy. And one day she brought me here to this beautiful community garden, and I felt my heart in a good place. I met a wonderful woman named Gloria, who has been the caregiver, the powerhouse, the center of this community, a woman that bears great responsibility in maintaining this wonderful place so that we could share each other's company and have this conversation to help others understand how important this understanding is. That land is what unites us. Land is what sustains us. Land, the earth beneath my feet. But I could feel the earth in my bare feet. It's a wonderful experience. So I live in Park Slope, and I recently rented an apartment 2 blocks from here. And it's a blessing, and I understood it. The Spirit gave that to me. I'm the caregiver of a burn survivor who was burned 67% and lost 4 fingers, my grandchild. And I can't begin to tell you how important it is to not only have raised her on an Indian reservation, and then I brought her to New York, and I can offer her this. Because of the tears and the sweat and the equity that was given here by, like David said, women, strong women, that continue to uphold this nourishment for all of us. So that's what finds me here today, in your presence. I want to thank you for having me here.
Thank you. And I thank you for the words that you shared, and I can feel all of that, and just how much this means to you and how much you give to this earth. So thank you. And I know that you're one of those strong women in the present time that are being channeled by the people that came before you. And it's a real strength that comes with, I guess, connecting to the past and being responsible to hear it. So thank you, because I truly could feel that you hear it. And so what is it that you would envision between Botanic Gardens and the community gardens and the gift that it brings to community and the ever-changing climate of people coming into communities and feeling the people that usually are from there being displaced and having this resentment? How do you feel that all of the greenery and the people coming together, how this will have an effect on our future?
I would like to say thank you to the caregivers and all of the staff and everyone that has carried the responsibility of maintaining the Brooklyn Botanic Gardens for all of us for many, 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 many years. Because that green space is valid and important, and you have the best of the best, the most manicured, the most, influential levels of herbs and plants and roses and trees, those ancestors, those grandfathers are amazing. But this type of a community garden is where the real heart is, because this is where you get to physically touch, sweat equity, and give to the community, because it really doesn't belong to us. Just like that garden was cared for in my lifetime by many other people for me to enjoy and to come back to whenever I was able to. This garden here will be a vehicle by which I will teach my grandchildren to get their hands dirty and to move litter, trash, help with the composting, and know that the pollinators are so important to all of us and these plants. And this is what I burn survivor of 67%, is deeply connected and anchored in these understandings. And this is how I walk this walk. This is how I've survived this gift that was given to us, and a responsibility to carry this walk. So that's how I see this garden, this green space.
Okay. So with the knowing a little bit about the healing power of herbs and trees, and in the past that's what was the medicine, or still is the medicine that is hidden. How do you involve yourself in, I know you said you were a teacher. Is there any classes where they teach about the herbs too?
Yes, so I am a board member and a member of the Brooklyn Society for Ethical Culture. And in that, there's a children's program that my children are involved in that I ran to when I got to New York because I needed a place to go to with my spirit. And so they learn, they've even processed maple syrup from the tapping the tree, and they've actually done it out in the yard there. And so they do learn those things, and they learn about, gardens, and they plant bulbs, and they plant what they can. And yes, the Brooklyn Society for Ethical Culture for Children sustains that educational level for them as well.
Okay, great. Yeah, because I think that's important. If you know as a child the importance of like the properties that the food provides, and if you grow up with that, I think it has a better way of just changing a person's experience. I mean, I didn't know. I mean, I did grow up. Well, my grandparents were from the South, so they had a garden. So I did remember how it was to pick things and how they would store stuff. But when I would travel other places and just listen to people, and they would tell me about like the honey, and if you buy the honey in a certain season, if you had allergies, you just take a little bit, and how that would help with allergies and stuff. And I'm like, wow, this is like stuff that is so valuable that we don't know. So I think it's so important that we do pass it on at a young age, and what benefits that'll have on our society. And I guess they just did the thing on the first ladies with Michelle Obama, and how even when she introduced the move for the children to move in the garden, I did get a chance to go to the White House to see the garden, and just watching that just last night, I was like, and how it was such a people were so against her for initiating to teach the children how to grow stuff, and just how crazy that is. But I understand it. But yeah, so that's a powerful thing. So thank you for knowing enough to share, and I'm sure you'll be blessed to continue. Thank you to give all you have to.
The color green is the heart chakra. Green resonates with us. And from that, the air we breathe is purified. I would walk the streets of Brooklyn and I teach you to know. I was picking pokeberries as dye, as a potential dye for porcupine quills. But it is an honor to be here, to share whatever I have to give. Because it doesn't belong to us.
Right.
Just like our children.
Right. So we're going to tie it up here, and I just want to let Lourdes know what it is. Just share with us what you want to leave us with. It's about you and what you want to part with us to knowing.
Well, I wanted you to know that my love for the land started when I was born in Cuba. My grandfather worked the land. He taught me to love, what came from the land. I came to New York City and it was traumatic. Like not a lot of diversity and that kind of stuff. And then moving from that, I truly feel I healed on an Indian reservation where there was nothing but land, and an understanding for land and a different respect for land, and the lack of ownership of land for the Ihangtuan Dakota Oyate, which is one of the 7 council fires of the Osheti Shakaween, which does include Pine Ridge, Rosebud, Standing Rock. And once you've experienced that, you can't go back.
and sharing that important information. It's been a wonderful time talking to you and just hearing your spirit speak.
You can reach me at lourdes.zephyr@gmail.com, LOURDESZEPHIER@gmail.com.
Thank you. Hi, we're back, and now our final guest is Connie Lesold, and she is a community activist and lover of all things being free, especially when it comes to the Botanic Gardens. And that is a passion, and she's going to share with us what she wants us to know and what she wants to happen. Welcome, Connie, and just share with us your what it is you want us to know.
Well, thank you so much for this interview. I 2 years ago, 2018, founded this committee of 100 to make the Brooklyn Botanic Garden free again. And you are a voice for the voiceless, as I understand it. And we've been pretty voiceless. During this 2-year period, we've had one demonstration of 50 to 100 people in front of the Botanic Garden, where people came from Philadelphia as well as from different parts of New York to voice their feelings about the importance of free botanic gardens and cultural institutions, as they all used to be. We got no press out for it, except for one of our own members, the wonderful Fred Bonderson, whom you may know.
Yes, he's been a guest.
Fred is a reporter and writer and has done a lot of work.
Egyptologist, educator, the list goes on.
Yeah, community board member, chairman of the transportation committee, which is so important. Fred did a wonderful article for the Daily Challenge.
Okay.
And he has done several articles about the Botanic Gardens issues for the Daily Challenge. He's been our most consistently interested member of the press. Also, we had a little demonstration last year at the entrance on Empire Boulevard, where we had a variety of people speaking from different places, people concerned about the health issues of the garden, which you heard so wonderfully from Lourdes, and educational issues, some people from Medgar College, and in general. And I believe it was Channel 12 who covered that very nicely for us. Since 2018, we have come into the garden, small groups, when they had it free on Friday mornings only. And we met with Scott Medbury, who was the head of the garden at that time. Scott was a very wonderful, charming gentleman brought in from California to be head of the garden. I'm sure he was a wonderful horticulturalist, but he was not really comfortable relating to the community. And that's what's required when you're dealing with public spaces, in my opinion. Now Scott has gone after very graciously, he was always a gracious gentleman, thanking me for my interest and concern for the Botanic Gardens. Now the Gardens has recently appointed Adrian Benepe, former chair or head of the Parks Department for the City of New York. And I am very, very hopeful that we will get something. He came up through the ranks in the Parks Department, started out as a 16-year-old, and as I believe the Botanic Gardens website says he was a a stranger. And that's kind of in keeping with what Lourdes was saying about the importance to children. And I'm very, very encouraged by his importance. I will be extremely disappointed if he doesn't move us forward. I fully expect it. And I'm quite sure the community gardeners will be happy with this appointment. I think that he is very interested in expanding opportunities for New Yorkers to garden. Now, the reason that I suggested this location for this interview is not only that it's a wonderful garden and it's just a block away from the Brooklyn Botanic Gardens, but it sits on top of the Brooklyn Botanic Garden stop on the Franklin Avenue shuttle. And if you know anything about the history of the Franklin Avenue shuttle, which you do, I know, you know that it was a 20-year battle to save it from being completely eliminated and get it renovated. And the people in this neighborhood, when that battle was really warming up in the late 80s, they wanted this land, which was empty, they wanted it for a park. And they came to me because I was very active on parks and transportation issues for Community Board 8. And they said, you know, we want a park here, get us a park. And I just sort of looked around, told them there is no way we will get a park here. We got a park down the street. Not going to happen. But if you want a garden here, we can do it. Operation Green Thumb was a new institution, partly thanks to our wonderful congresswoman from this area, Shirley Chisholm, who was unbought and unbossed.
Yes.
And that's what we grow up thinking we were supposed to be. And so we said, also thinking, but you know, not telling everybody, because sometimes it's not too smart to tell all your moves, that if we get a garden over the Franklin Avenue shuttle here, then they'll never be able to take it away from us, because we'll have an organized group here all the time. So that's what we did. And we thought that we had it made for two wonderful programs. Of course, there was over here at that time the union of the transit police, who always wanted this for a parking lot. And in the late 80s, they came in here. This was then called the Eastern Parkway Coalition Garden, because the Eastern Parkway Coalition and the Summer Youth Program of the City of New York had established this garden through the Haitian American Daycare Center and the Eastern Parkway Coalition. So the transit authorities union men came in here on a weekend in the late 80s and totally destroyed the garden. Totally, with bulldozers and everything. A little old lady with Parkinson's disease, Carrie Ellison, came to me. I lived on Eastern Parkway, across the street in 225 Eastern Parkway at that time. And she said, Connie, they're destroying the garden. They've got bulldozers in there. I said, yeah, maybe they got pink elephants in there too. And so I said, well, I'll go out there and see with you. Sure enough, they were out here bulldozing everything. So I said to her, Carrie, I don't think there's much we can do this weekend. But come Monday, when all the agencies and everything are in play, we'll take care of business. Meanwhile, though, we did call the police. Do you think the police went up against the Transit Police Union? It had no interest in this. But Monday, Operation Green Thumb at that time had a fiery young leader, Jane Weissman. And she came in here, she was about this high. And she said, "Get off of my land right now. Don't you see the sign out there that says Eastern Parkway Coalition says Operation Green Thumb, City of New York? Get out of here right now." And Mary Pinkett, who was the city councilwoman at the time, she called and said, "Would you like me to have the borough president have a press conference in the garden?" I said, "Well, of course, that would be wonderful." So the borough president of Brooklyn came out to this garden, and we invited all the environmental organizations at that time. Cornell came. There were representatives from, I can't even remember all the names of the different environmental groups. And Mary Pinkett, of course, was there, and the borough president. And the press did a wonderful job, even the New York Post.
Wow.
And the story carried all the way to Rochester, where my husband had some relatives who called me up and said, "Was that you?" But what won the day was the little boy, who was a very mischievous soul that lived in this building. He gave the best interview. He said, "It was a beautiful garden." Well, it was winter, so it wasn't much in it at that time. It wasn't all as organized as it is now. We liked it a little disorganized. Anyhow, he did a wonderful job, and the little old lady with the Parkinson's did a wonderful job. And I told them that the transit police had come in like a SWAT team in Vietnam. And they loved that line. That's what the Post used. So they left, but do you know that they actually went to court thinking they could still get it? They were the state, right? We were the city. The judge told them, "You better let those little old ladies have their garden." So they lost and they went away. Now that was not the first time that people for some reason, from the transit police station over here had wanted to get this land for a parking lot. And the people, the neighbors over here, had run them out. So there is a long history for fighting for this piece of land right now.
Right.
And what we're faced with right now is that you have developers all over town wanting to take every piece of land and put something on it.
Right.
This Eastern Parkway was modeled after Paris. And in Paris, it's the law. You got to have open space every so often place. It's wonderful in that regard. So, you know, we're not giving up this land. Whatsoever king may reign as mayor of New York City, or borough president, or head of the Parks Department, or anything else, we hope that this land will remain as a resource for this neighborhood, for people of all backgrounds, which it has always been. And this has been a stabilizing force, we believe, for here. We're going to see to it that this land stays here. It may not be easy. It may not be easy. But I believe, and I think, that if whoever's the new mayor is looks back a little bit in history, hopefully he will remember when Giuliani tried to take so many community gardens. He was a pretty smart man. He didn't try to take this one. He was already pretty well established. But he tried to take every other community garden in Crown Heights. And that same little woman, Jane Weissman, don't you know she led the demonstration in Manhattan when it looked like thousands of people got arrested over community gardens from all over the city of New York. And Bette Midler when she saw what we did in Crown Heights, we had these, not midnight, but we had these evening vigils with lamp lights and lit candles all over these community gardens. And the one down on Pacific Street near the church, she saw us down there with the priest from the Episcopal Church praying, and the children all out there. Her staff said, "Oh no, they're praying again." And she went and was able to purchase, however she did it, get some of the gardens in Crown Heights, and Operation Green Thumb and the Trust for Public Land got others.
Okay.
The Trust for Public Land is very, very, very important. Hattie Carthan, who some will remember, the most wonderful woman, head of Magnolia Tree Earth Center, which we need to have them continue to be involved. When Hattie Carthan was alive, she had her people out here helping us with summer youth programs of the Tree Zone Eastern Parkway. She was there when they landmarked Eastern Parkway. Hattie Carthan just didn't stay in her little house and say, "I'm afraid because the city council person might not, she or he might not do this, that, or the other for me." Hattie Carthan was so charming that she went out and did everything she could all over for plants and gardens. She was a wonderful, wonderful person. She was from Virginia. And they teach her in the public schools. They teach Hattie Carthan. So at any rate, I told you that I'm liable to ramble, so you may have to stop me. But at any rate,
Well, I just want to, I want to share that from what you said so far, to the community, the lesson that I'm hearing and the importance of the history that you're giving us, but is that now you have to, I want people to remember that it took people that had a love for their community and would not just stand for people coming in and because they were bigger than them, demolishing what meant something to the community. And the value and the stories and the history of the people is that, and I know for a fact that, that old saying, you can't fight City Hall, that's not true, and don't believe it. That every person, from the little boy that you said that was a big part of it, from the words he said at that time, and that whoever you are, if you see something that is being destroyed that we need, don't think that you can't do something about it, because you can, because all the stories you just said, it was just people from the community. And if people think they have no power, then that's what the developers will think, and they will get everything that's important to continue. So don't let that happen, because everybody is important. Everyone has a role that they need to be playing. And that is not sitting around complaining about this is happening, oh, they came and they did this. That's not going to get us anywhere. You have to do something. If it's not just stand up for, like you said, somebody came with a bulldozer, somebody ran and told somebody. It is something that everybody has to do. That's your responsibility. That's how we preserve what we have. If no one says anything and people just sit in groups and complain about, oh, they came and they did this and that, and you didn't attempt to do anything, then that falls on us. Because the people that you're talking about are people that planted the gardens, people that stood up, people like Jane Jacobs that, saved green things in New York. We have to be those people. So I'm glad and honored to have you to share those stories that we wouldn't otherwise know, and that you're also one of those people. You talk about, oh, this person, and she was a little old lady and she did this. Well, now that is you. And what I want to know from growing up on Eastern Parkway and living there for the times that you did, and just having what is done for your life, what the significance of all the green and what it's meant to you and how it's changed your life and how that can convey to someone now, a young person, and if they had the value of going to a botanic gardens like anytime they felt like it. What has it impacted you from a younger person to this day?
Well,
Like maybe on a spiritual level, what is meant to you?
well, going back a little further than you did, I did not grow up on Eastern Parkway.
Right.
I moved to Eastern Parkway with my husband when I was first married.
Right.
I grew up in Durham, North Carolina,
Right.
at Chapel Hill, where the gardens, the famous Jute Gardens, were entirely free. And I'm sure they were segregated at that time, unfortunately, but they were free. And they're not segregated anymore. And we went there. From this age on up, I have a million memories there with my family, with my dates later on, and what have you. And Judith Zook, who was a head of the Botanic Gardens before Scott Medbury, and was the first person to head it when they started putting on fees. Judith Zook was very well aware of the importance of the garden. The gardens meant everything to me as a mother who wanted her child to grow up with all the advantages of a beautiful place.
Right.
And it breaks my heart that a whole generation has grown up without the benefit of a free botanic gardens, which is exactly what Reverend Lloyd Henry, who was the city council person for East Flatbush and over here, he had held a press conference in front of the Brooklyn Botanic Garden when they first put on the fees during Judith Zook's time, and said that it would be the first generation of Caribbean children who did not have a free botanic garden. So now we have a whole generation that's grown up that don't know anything about having it free. And then they decided a few years ago that there would, well, it's more than a few years ago, in the 90s, the late 90s, they decided that it was not going to be free. There was an all-white board at that time. But of course they found a few black folks to put on the board with outstanding names when they decided to put on the fees. I don't know how they convinced those folks, but I'll tell you one thing. They didn't convince Elizabeth Scholz. There's nothing she could do, but they didn't convince her. She never believed in those fees. And when Elizabeth Scholz left the garden, she was followed by Don Moore, and that's one reason I'm so hopeful about Benepy, because Don Moore was he may not have grown up in Brooklyn, but he spent a lot of time here. He renovated downtown Brooklyn. He had a lot to do with doing away with the L over there on Myrtle Avenue. He learned from his experiences. And he was they brought him in to get the conservatories built. But he was also brought in to help gentrify this neighborhood then. But we followed him around, that little old lady with Parkinson's, because this was the same time we were trying to save the shuttle. We followed him everywhere he went. He turned red in the face, he got so mad. But when we said, finally he said, "What do you want?" The garden was still free then. We said, "We want the Franklin Avenue shuttle." So he got on the battle with us. He became head of the committee to save the Franklin Avenue shuttle. That's how close the Brooklyn Botanic Garden in the old days worked with people in the community. And Don was fantastic. He had everybody coming into the Botanic Garden. They weren't sitting in here. In the Botanic Garden, he had the unions. He had the school board. He had everybody coming in there, meeting as to what we could do to save the shuttle. And he had us writing letters and all, and he said, I'm not going to do it all. You know, he was a fantastic leader. I don't know if we'd have got this shuttle if it hadn't been from Don Moore. I tell you, it was, and everybody loved it because, you know, people love to go to the garden. It enhances their status. They feel important. It's great for the spirit.
Yes.
But a lot of people go for that feeling of status. And the sad part of that is that now a whole generation of children, because I surveyed a lot of them over in Park Slope,
Right.
think that, well, you know, we're important because we're members of the Botanic Garden. You ask them, don't you think other children should be able to go for free? Well, my family has a membership. Well, I'm sorry, but that just kills my spirit when I hear what we are doing to children.
Right.
You know, that's public land. It was free for the whole century.
Right.
It encouraged children of all backgrounds. Now half of Brooklyn doesn't get to go.
Right.
Fortunately, I don't know that I had anything to do with it, but I called a couple of months ago after they had closed for the pandemic and talked to the secretary for Scott Medberry. Had already gone, and there were 3 people in there running the show. I can't talk to 3 people at one time.
Right.
But the secretary, I'm sure, gave them the message that why don't you try when you reopen to have it free and see how it goes. Now they're doing that. Somebody else probably called them too, or maybe they're coming to their senses and
Right.
realizing
Yeah.
that, you know,
It
whatever
was-
the reason,
Membership is down.
they are, you can call, right now, get on the website and get a free pass.
Yes.
I don't know how many people know that, but you know how, this is why I've got this book here on this table by Judy Heumann. She was a woman who was so important in getting disability rights in this country.
Okay.
And the person who called me to tell me that the gardens was going to be free was a board member of Disabled in Action. And I used to be a board member too. So I told him, get us a pass to go visit the garden, see how it works. Actually, Phil Bennett didn't do that, but Lourdes, whom you just interviewed, did.
Okay.
And both of them have people in, Phil have a real history with disability rights issues. And that gets back to the spirit.
Right.
My father was a disabled veteran of World War II who lived with me. He came back with a serious psychiatric disability. He lived with me for some years, and he loved the Botanic Gardens. He loved Prospect Park. He loved this garden. He had a Victory Garden before World War II, before he was in the war. And we gardened in my backyard. So I grew up with all kinds of gardens and everything. My husband, that's why that is there, and this came from Berlin, Germany, escaping from Hitler. I'm a daughter of the American Revolution. He just got there. And his father loved the Botanic Garden. He went there for comfort. He went there to keep his sanity because he had to leave Germany and leave behind his sick mother. He left at the last minute. And he had to leave his wife's mother too, and his beloved sister who wouldn't leave without her mother. These had to be sent to England with the children's program. And the British saved a lot of the children from Nazi Germany. So my husband got here, Nazi Germany, grew up on Ocean Parkway, came over here, loved the Botanic Gardens, everything was free. His mother took him to the museum. If you've ever read any of Chaim Potok, if you Eastern Parkway in those days. Reed Kayam Potok. My name is Asher Lev. Anyway.
Okay. Well, I just want to say.
But just let me say there before you go on that this is why we have the emphasis on the disability, the issues of war and peace, the issues of climate change, which are so strong right now.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't get all these groups together, Prospect Park, the Botanic Gardens, the community gardens, if we can't get all these groups together so close by to work on it, saving the planet,
Right.
then who the heck is going to do it?
Right.
And it can't be just the rich and the privileged doing it. That's a joke. Most people in the world are poor. If they're not involved, half the people in Brooklyn are poor. If they're not involved in that battle, it's over. And it is still a community of immigrants. And if we don't have these immigrants able to come and bring their children used to go by themselves, then we don't have a chance. We had a chance before to grow and to blossom in the city.
Right.
And for some reason, we tried to kill it in the 90s, and then by doing away with free cultural institutions, doing away with free universities.
Okay. All right. Well, that'd be a whole nother show. But what I put together from everything that you said, especially from your experience growing up with all of this, your husband, it goes back to, once again, when you relate to the earth, when you value what it took and what it gives, then you don't grow up to be a heartless, a heartless developer that has no kind of understanding of what greenery and spaces mean to the environment and to people. So if you don't, that generation that didn't grow up with that are probably the people that are just trying to tear down everything to put a parking lot to make money. So that's an important piece that I got out of why it's important, so that you can continue to be grounded in the earth and what it means to people and to your spirit and to be a good person. Thank you, and we'll see you next time on the Ketriana Yvonne Show.